It was almost midnight. The rain had been hammering down for hours. The kind of rain that makes the whole world feel smaller, darker, like everything beyond your headlights simply doesn't exist. I was finishing up a late shift at the diner I'd been working at for about a year. A quiet little place, the kind where everybody knows everybody and strangers tend to stand out. Rainy nights were always slow. People don't leave their homes when the sky opens up like that. So I wasn't expecting much. And for most of the night, I was right. But then the door opened. In walked two people, a man and a woman. He looked to be around 40. She couldn't have been older than her mid 20s. The age gap between them was noticeable, unusual, but not alarming. Not yet. The moment they stepped inside, they both looked directly at me. Not a casual glance, not the kind of look you give when you're just checking out a new place. They looked at me. I smiled, walked over, and showed them to a table. They took longer than usual to order, and while they waited, they spoke to each other in voices so low I couldn't make out a single word. Heads close together, eyes occasionally drifting around the room. I told myself it was nothing. Eventually, they ordered, and then the man started talking to me. I've always been a talker. It's part of why I love this job. So I engaged. The diner was dead anyway. What else was I going to do? But the woman said almost nothing the entire time, not a word. She just sat there quietly, like she was somewhere else entirely. So I directed most of my conversation toward him. We talked about the usual things, the weather, the town, nothing special. And then he asked me something. Something that didn't hit me until much, much later. He leaned forward slightly and said, "Do you live by yourself?" I answered without thinking. I told him yes. I said I lived about 10 minutes up the road. Quiet neighborhood. Nothing much going on up there. He nodded slowly and smiled. At the time, I thought nothing of it. He was sitting right there with a woman. What was there to be afraid of? I laughed it off, made a joke about being stuck in this town forever, and walked away from the table. About 45 minutes later, they paid and left. The night wound down. We closed up. I said goodbye to my co-workers, ran through the pouring rain to my car, and drove home slowly through the flooded streets. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I bolted straight for the front door. I didn't look around. I didn't notice that neither of my neighbors' cars were parked outside. I was alone in that building. I just didn't know it yet. I dropped my keys on the counter, set my bag down, took a breath, and then pounding, frantic, aggressive pounding at the front door. It was almost 1 in the morning. My building had two doors, a glass storm door on the outside and a heavy inner door. I always kept both locked, every single night. I cracked open the inner door and peered through the glass. Standing on the other side was a young woman. She was completely soaked, a grey hoodie pulled up over her head, partially hiding her face. She was shaking, and she was begging me to let her inside. She said a man was following her. She said she needed help. Something about her felt familiar. I couldn't place it immediately, but something in the back of my mind was whispering at me, "You've seen her before?" I asked her who the man was, where he was now. She glanced over her shoulder into the dark and rain soaked street. "I don't know," she said. She grabbed the handle of the storm door and tried to pull it open herself. And that's when it clicked. She was the woman from the diner, the one who had barely said a word all night, the one sitting across from that man. That man. I asked her directly, "Were you at the diner tonight?" She didn't answer. Instead, she spun around toward the street and started screaming. "There he is!" I looked past her, and there he was, a large figure, moving slowly through the rain toward the house. Unhurried, unbothered, like he had all the time in the world. Like he knew I wasn't going anywhere. The closer he got, the more certain I became. It was him, the man from the diner, the one who had asked me, "Do you live by yourself?" I think she saw the recognition in my eyes, because she turned to him and screamed one single word, "Go!" And he ran straight at the door. I slammed the inner door shut and threw every lock I had. I pressed my back against it and stood there in silence, listening. Nothing. No banging, no voices, just rain. I checked on my neighbors, knocked on both doors in the stairwell, upstairs and downstairs. Nothing. I looked out the window. No cars. I was completely alone. I sat on my couch and stared at the wall. The pieces were falling into place, one by one, and none of them were good. The girl showing up at my door in the middle of the night, the man charging toward the house, the way they had both stared at me the moment they walked into the diner. And that question, "Do you live by yourself?" It hadn't been small talk. It had been research. I talked myself out of calling the police that night, a decision I will regret for the rest of my life. Instead, I went to the bathroom to get ready for bed and tried to convince myself it was over. It wasn't over. That's when I heard it. Knocking. Slow. Deliberate. Knocking. Coming from the stairwell door. I walked toward it. "Who's there?" Silence. Then another knock. I called out my neighbors' names, one by one. Nothing. I told whoever was on the other side that I was calling the police if they didn't identify themselves. I wasn't whispering. They heard every word. They knocked again. "What do you want?" I demanded. And a voice from the other side of the door said, "Your blood on me." I don't remember running to my bedroom. I just remember being there. Door locked, back against the wall, phone in my hand shaking as I dialed 911. I crawled into my closet and pulled the door shut behind me, and I waited. The thunder rattled the windows. Every creak of the house made my breath catch. Every sound that wasn't the dispatcher's voice felt like a threat. 10 minutes. The longest 10 minutes of my life. The police arrived, took a full report, searched the property inside and out. They found nothing. But before they left, they suggested I find somewhere else to sleep for a few nights. I didn't argue. I packed a bag while they were still standing in my apartment, and I drove straight to my parents' house without looking back. I came back the next day. My upstairs neighbor knocked on the stairwell door. He opened it and then stopped. He looked at the door, then at me. "What is this?" he asked. I stepped forward and looked. Written across the door in thick black marker were 7 words. "Thanks for the service, Beth." They knew my name. They had been in my section. They had talked to me. They had asked me where I lived. And then they had followed me home. I stayed at my parents' house for weeks. Found a new apartment the following month. New locks, new neighborhood, new routines. But some things don't leave you just because you move. Some nights follow you. And sometimes when the rain starts hammering against the windows late at night, I think about a man sitting across a diner table, smiling, and asking me, "Do you live by yourself?"